Hey, welcome to Designing Data Infographics. My name is Dino and I will be your instructor. I'm very excited to have you here with me today. And in this course, more generally, just a little bit of a background for me. I've taught three different versions of a very demanding infographics course. One was a 2-day, 7 hours per day, very intense. Taught a 7-week version, which was 2 hours a day over the course of 7 different weeks. And I taught a longer 15-week version, which is about 2.5 hours per week for 15 weeks. All have unique challenges. They all dealt with the intersection of the theoretical and very practical in terms of making infographics. And it's the sort of the bottom line for this is it is very difficult to produce high quality work very quickly. So just be mindful of that, friends. This is from the course description. We live in a complex, dynamic, and multi-dimensional world. Institutions and organizations of all sizes and types recognize visuals to be essential in communicating information clearly and graphically. Geographical, cultural, and linguistic barriers, combined with the glut of conflicting messages, available media channels, and consumer choices have created an overwhelming need for clarity. From this, information designers, like yourself, become essential. This is the big part. In terms of the course description, Designing Data Infographics merges design and information to convey exciting, engaging, and informative images. These images will convey messages. Students learn to design information in analog and digital ways to explore content and create infographics. So that's what the course is, to make sure that you are signed up for something you like. Hopefully that sounds exciting to you. I'm going to talk about a little bit about some expectations from the course and some outliers. The Outliers book by Malcolm Gladwell. This is a definition of information design. I just want to show it to you really fast. Information design, also known as communication design, is a rapidly growing discipline that draws on typography, graphic design, applied linguistics, applied psychology, applied ergonomics, computing, and other fields. That's a lot of things. Let me just underline them for you. Typography, graphic design, applied linguistics, applied psychology, applied ergonomics, computing, and other fields. That is 6 specifically enumerated fields and a 7th called other fields. So just so you know, it takes a lot of different things that help people information design, so it's very complex, just so that you know. And then also for the Outliers book, in it, Mr. Gladwell talks about the idea of becoming a world class at any phenomena taking about 10,000 hours. This course is very short, like dozens of hours in total. You won't become a global master in that short a time. Please don't expect that. There's only so much I can do, and you can do together in a short period of time. But we'll try. Could have you do a little activity just for your own edification, your own learning. I want you to go and use the Google machine, whatever type of search engine you have, and search for some infographics. Any infographics, anything at all, any field you want. Search in any way you want. But please, while you do this, think about the infographics you may have seen and found. A couple things to think about. What are the themes that you've seen that come across? What are some of the subject matters that you deal with? What are the style visually? And then anything that is miscellaneous that you've discovered. This might be a good time to pause the video and go search for some infographics. We're back. Here are some themes for the infographics that you might have found. Hopefully if you searched across subject matter, there's a very diverse and abundance of subject matter you can find. Let me show you this, for example. I did this a recent search. These are all infographics that deal with coffee. Every single one of these, as you can see by the little icons, the cups, etc. This is just the top of a search engine page for coffee infographics. And this goes on and on and on and on. There are literally dozens of these things. And that is just for the subject of coffee. Zooming in, you can see some of them have repeated icons here, repeated icons, repeated bigger and smaller icons. Some of them have a bit more text and various icons. These ones have smaller ones. Again, a diversity. So again, from that point, diverse and abundance of subject matter. One major distinction I find between them is the distinction between aesthetics and communication. Some are really, really beautiful. They're aesthetically pleasing. However, they may miss basic information and the way that they communicate. If you check them in detail, some of them just, again, very beautiful, but they don't tell you a lot. Some of them are not beautiful at all, but tell you a lot. And there's this tension between those two things. Ideally, the infographics you make are both aesthetically pleasing and communicate the messages you want across, to communicate across. Finally, you'll find some are highly dense with the information that they contain, some are not dense. And these are probably the best contrast between that is a phone book, which has a very dense amount of information like per page, versus an airport sign, which is much less dense. I'll show you a little graphic here. This on this axis, you have high information density at the top, low information density at the bottom. On the left, broad appeals to a broad audience, the one to a specific audience. And again, the examples I said before, a phone book, as you know from your experience looking at a phone book, it has a lot of information density, and it appeals to a broad audience, let alone anyone who can read, who knows the language that the phone book's made in, could understand it. It deals with a pretty broad audience, and it's just packed with information. In contrast, for low information density, you'll see like a airport wayfinding sign to help you get through an airport. That they're usually very, very minimal, the amount of information they deal with, but because they deal with international audiences getting across the globe quickly, they deal with a very broad audience. Let you look at this to see some other ones. Subway map is high information density, broad audience. Some other ones, research portal, if you're looking for research, high information density, but more specific audience, that specific research community. Medical illustration, again, very high information density, deals with a specific audience, obviously medical professionals or students. Broad audience. Calendar deals with a lot of different people, not so dense in its information. Another example, mass market software icons. If you're using software, these icons usually don't have a lot of information density. It's more for a broad audience. Obviously, if you're selling software, you want to sell it to the biggest audience possible. A couple more points, we're almost done. To sort of conclude our talk about your welcome and this first lesson on information density and a search for different infographics, why is the idea of information density even important? The density that you have in an infographic, whether you're making it or consuming it, depends on the subject matter you're visualizing and the audience you're creating it for. More specifically, if the subject matter is for a broad audience, you're going to want to have it not so dense. If you wanted to make it for a specific audience, you might want to make it more dense because those people have a lot of accrued information. Similarly, the audience you're creating it for also dictates how dense the information is. And again, I don't mean to be pejorative and to offend anyone, but if you have a really sophisticated, smart audience who's been educated for a long time in that field, it can be very dense. Say, again, that example we had about medical people who've been studying for years. The contrast would be, it would be less dense for, say, an international audience wayfinding through an airport. You have people that can be really smart, maybe a little bit less educated, but also you have people from international audiences who may be struggling in a new language. It has to be as simple and undense as possible. With that being said, again, welcome to Designing Data Infographics. I look forward to learning with you. Again, my name is Dino.